Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, I found it on my TikTok. The message, it reads like this. Hello, I am a South African pastor. I once appeared on TV. I still have that clip when I appeared on TV. I once went on TV and I started declaring fire and healing. Whenever I'll touch people, they will fall. Whenever I'll give someone a prophecy, that prophecy, it would come true. Talking about prophecy, we were using what they call familiar spirits. So a familiar spirit, it is the spirit of a demon that pretends to be someone that you once knew in your life. And since demons have been around for a very long time, they can know and they can predict. They can predict with great accuracy, telling you what kind of a life you are eventually going to live, because they know what kind of a person you are and they know the kind of blessings that they are there in your family, because they can study your past history, how your forefathers lived. And then if you give someone a prophecy, it will be as if you are using the Holy Spirit, but you will be using what we call familiar spirits. So most of these people that scream and shout on top of their voices, prophesy, Papa. Yes, you will be given a prophecy, but it's not a real prophecy. It is a prediction. Just like when those that are football analysts, when they predict the full-time score of a match that is about to happen, it is not a prophecy, but they study the way that the teams have been playing in the recent games that they have played, and then they can make a prediction. So that is the same prophecies that I used to give to people, and people thought that I was a true man of God, but my church, it never grew big like the way that I wanted to, because I ended up giving up. So I'll change the dates so that people won't recognize me immediately. Before I became a pastor, I was desperate. I'll say that this was in 2009. My ministry had no fire. I was preaching, but nothing was moving. No miracles, no power, no money. My wife was working 2 jobs so as to keep us afloat. People stopped coming to our church. We ended up with a little tent that was so funny in the location, because we could not afford to keep on renting the big tent because we had no money. Even my own relatives, those that used to come to my church, they stopped attending our church. If you see those that you are related to, when they stop coming to your church, then it means that your church, it is not growing any big, and it means that you are not going anywhere in your career as a pastor. So that is what was happening at that time. And then my daughter started to become so sick. So this made me to become so confused. By the time that I joined this cult, we did not have any money. So when you are experiencing problems in your life, you can go around telling people, anyone that wants to listen, that you have a lot of problems, especially if they are financial problems. There was no more peace in the house. That was when I approached another pastor friend from Johannesburg, who then told me that he had been introduced to a group and he wanted to go there, but he just was scared to go on his own. I went with him and we joined a Nigerian group of pastors. So these were prophets, and most of these prophets, from the time that I walked in and I saw them, I knew that they were those type of pastors that could use anything so as to have a lot of church members, because they took church as a business. There was one who even had a fly-by-night church that was in Hillbrow. When I went there, I was surprised, my brother, with what I saw. He was giving prayers for prostitutes and giving prayers as well for drug dealers so that they won't get arrested. But because I wanted help, we continued being members of that circle of pastors, and then we were taken to Nigeria. when we were taken to Nigeria, all of us that had gone to Nigeria, we came back with rings of power. I used to have this ring that I once had. It was a ring that I would use when I would be pointing at the church. This ring, I always made sure that I put it on my pointing finger so as to have power. When I would point at people in church, everyone will fall down immediately, even if I would be praying. And if you would see the clip that I have, if I point the way that I was pointing, I had a ring on that same finger that I was using to point at the camera so as to make people to get healed, but through occultic dark powers. And when we returned back to South Africa, I really did not understand what I was getting myself involved in. But all that I did when I went to Nigeria was that I went with my doctor's picture, and all the pastors as well. They had the pictures of their sisters. If you have a daughter, then you would choose one amongst your daughter that you would take a picture and go with to Nigeria. When we came back, that was when we were taken by this other high priestess who later came from Nigeria about 2 weeks later, and then we went to Durban. We were staying at this other very nice hotel, and at that hotel where we were staying, there was a beautiful private beach. So it was being used for occultic purposes because it was far from the eyes of the police as well as other regular people that would want to visit the area. So we were then told to go and throw the names of our daughters, some through the names of their sisters, into the ocean. We did as we had been instructed to do. Later on, my daughter started to have dreams where she would go into the ocean, where she would say she would meet women that were not older than 20, that were always silent, dressed in white clothing with beads around their waist. And then they would give my daughter a clay pot that was full of fire, and she would have a dream. She would see me sleeping on a bed that had red blankets, and I would also be covered in red blankets, and she would make me to drink that fire that she would have brought with her from the ocean. And whenever I would be preaching in church, I would always make sure that I scream fire on top of my voice, and people, they would feel the movement of the Holy Spirit, which they thought it was the movement of the Holy Spirit, but it was not the Holy Spirit, for this was occultic stuff that was now happening in church. We got excited. We started to get a lot of people that would come to our church, and these people that came to our church, most of them, they had businesses, and we started using their businesses so as to get money and to upgrade the church. We then moved out of the location and we moved into Joburg CBD. We started renting out this other college, even though we did not have big space, but the church, it was always full at all the times. It was full no matter what. And then that was when I started to sleep around quite a lot. I did not know that I was possessed by then. Even my friend, the pastor, who made me to join this Nigerian cult, he also started losing control. As for him, it was even worse. He started sleeping with men. I still remember one day he told me that he had planned a vacation. I was so excited, but he then told me that he did not want me to tell my wife that he was going on this vacation, for he had lied to his wife that he was going to see his spiritual father, a man that a lot of you know that is from Nigeria. I cannot mention his name here because most of you will recognize that man. So he had lied to his wife that he is on his way going to Nigeria, but he was going to Las Vegas. You know what he wanted to do there? In Las Vegas, he told me that there were some women. These women, they are not born as women, but they go under the knife and then they end up looking as if they are women. He just went there to sleep with such a woman who was born as a man. That is how much involved he was into the cult. As for me, I would be sleeping with as many women as I could. But then there were days when I would be given an order, like for 41 days, you're not supposed to have sexual intercourse with your wife. You are only supposed to sleep with prostitutes. And this ended up with me having HIV. And there were days when I was not supposed to eat cooked meat. I would eat raw meat, and to do a lot of rituals. What I discovered was that I started to prophesy with shocking accuracies. I could call names, phone numbers, hidden sicknesses. I could describe what people were wearing in their dreams. People would scream, faint, roll as if they were snakes on the floor. And people started coming to my church, even my online services, and offerings started growing. We moved from the place where we were in the CBD to a bigger church. It was a nice church, and I started wearing designer suits. I was once invited by a TV station. I appeared on SABC, and we even said that we were going to have a great revival of fire that would sweep across South Africa. And for 2 years, I was able to make a lot of money, but I then discovered that nothing is for free in this world. My mother then died suddenly 2 years after my fame had started, the rituals that I had done in Nigeria. My mother, she had a heart attack, they said, but I just felt that there was something occultic that had happened. At her funeral, whenever I would feel like I want to cry, I would hear this voice deep inside of me that would tell me to stop crying. That was when I saw my mom. She was sitting on top of a rock that was in the middle of the ocean there in Durban. She was wearing the same clothes that we had buried her in. Her eyes were full of pain when she was looking at me, and she said one thing: "My son, if you continue walking down this path, my son, hell is waiting for you." Then she jumped into the water, and then she disappeared. After that, I started to have a lot of visions. I once saw a demon whilst I was preaching. I was so shocked to see a demon that was sitting amongst the congregants in my church. When I saw this demon, I looked at the praise and worship where they were seated. Since I was giving a sermon, I saw that behind them there was a dark cloud, and it was a demonic dark cloud that were covering my worship team. That night I could not sleep. I told my wife, I finally exposed myself to my wife about what I had done in Nigeria, and my daughter, being sent to the ocean by the marine spirits so that she can collect the powers that I was using in our church. Me and my wife, we then started to pray, because I later heard that my friend, he was now sleeping with his own daughter. When he told me this, I could not stop myself from telling my wife. My wife, she was shocked about that, for I knew that eventually I would have to sleep with my own daughter. I went to one of the Nigerian prophets, and he said to me, "You cannot walk away, because if you walk away, your daughter is going to die." I made a vow on that day, and I said, it is far much better that I lose my life than for me to keep on promoting the works of the devil. I stopped doing those rituals. My daughter stopped having all of those dreams. She became sick, and she was diagnosed with leukemia. If you know that type of a cancer that have no cure at all. As for my church, I could not even believe it. The church started shrinking. All the business people, they stopped donating money to the church. My bank account, we dropped. We got our house repossessed. And as for the car that we had recently bought, it was repossessed in front of the neighbors. It was very embarrassing. We were left with no car, nothing. There was one point in time when me and my wife, we could go to church using a taxi. And finally, my church was only left with less than 20 people. We could not afford anymore for that church to go on because the building was really big. And as for the instruments that we had to sell them so that we can be able to buy a small tent. We are back in the location. I spoke with one of my cousin brother who allowed me to continue doing my ministry in his yard, but he does not know that this is what happened because I'm scared to even letting people to know that this is what I did. As for now, my brother, I just preach to a number of people, and sometimes I go around preaching to the homeless, those that are drug addicted, and we do not have any money at all. I am always fasting because the temptations are there for me to return back to Nigeria to ask for forgiveness so that I can get my powers back. As for the ring that used to give me power, it just disappeared one early morning after we had fasted for 3 days. Then when I woke up, I then discovered that the ring, it was no longer there because in our bedroom, we now had a little altar where I used to keep that ring on top of this other small bookshelf. It had disappeared and I do not know where it went to. I am always fasting, asking God for mercy. To any pastor that might be reading this, do not chase power, especially to go to Western African countries. You are only going to be given satanic power. And most of the people, they do not know that having spiritual fathers, it is quite dangerous, because once you say that I have a spiritual father, if that person is an occultic man, if he does satanic rituals in the dark, then as long as you claim that he is your spiritual father, it means that you are also part of the cult which he has joined. So I want people to stop saying that I have a spiritual father that is in Ghana. I have a spiritual father that is somewhere. As long as you do not know what they do in the dark, it is quite dangerous. I have seen a lot of stuff that happened in that cult, and I felt so sorry for my friend because he wanted fame. He wanted to become rich. He ended up sleeping with his own daughter. This is my confession. If you post, please give me a link so that I can follow through and read people's comments. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our brother. He is saying that the day when he decided to stop performing the rituals, the power, it was taken from him, and all of a sudden, all the people that used to come to his church, they all stopped all at once. Only about 10 people that kept on coming to his church. They sold everything. He said that things went so terrible. They ended up selling the carpet of the church, as well as the chairs. They sold the instruments, everything that belonged to the church, so that he can just be able to buy food in his home. Let us try to talk about this in the comment section.